Board members are here, and it is time. I think we'll make a start. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Milnes. I'm the chair of GCP, and my colleagues here are Councillor Cameron Holloway, Councillor Lorna Dupre, and Sir John Aston, representing the university. And welcome to you all. I'll ask Dem Services if we've got any apologies for the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. There are no apologies to report.
Thank you. On declarations of interest, I'll ask now, but if anybody comes across any interest that they feel that should be declared during the meeting, they're welcome to do so at the item in question. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? Sir John, do you want to use your mic? Thank you.
How to do this? Brilliant, thank you. So yeah, I've got one with respect to the Compton Greenway, Sidgwick Avenue. I'm obviously a member of the university, so we have buildings on one side, and I'm also affiliated with Newnham College, which is on the other side. So,
thank you. Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Dupre.
Perhaps I should declare that I am an alumna of Selwyn on the other side of the road.
I don't think it's pertinent, but
I don't think it is either.
But it's interesting, and you're welcome to mention it. Thank you. Next item is meetings of the previous minutes. I hope everybody's had a chance to read them. Does anybody have any comments about the accuracy or otherwise of the minutes? I'm just looking at Councillor Dupre. Just to shake your head if the answer's no. Okay, that's fine. So I'm happy if everybody else is to sign those as an accurate record of the meeting. I'll take it all in one go, thank you. I'll just sign that off, thank you. So that's the minutes done. We've got item 4, which is questions from members of the public. We do have some accepted questions today, and it's my intention to bring them in on the items in question, if everybody's happy with that. So that's what we will do on the Barton Greenway and Comberton Greenway Sidgwick Avenue items. We'll call please speakers as necessary. So, Councillor Smith, who is the chair of the Joint Assembly, we normally take your report again in the order of the items, if you're happy to do that. Well, thank you for the report, which we've got anyway, and we'll take the items as we go through them in the agenda. Thank you. Next is the quarterly progress report on pages 19 to 56. This is going to be introduced by Niamh Matthews, and I'll hand over to you, Niamh. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report isn't asking the board to make any consider any specific recommendations. We're asking you to consider the progress across the kind of wider programme. Before the discussion, perhaps a couple of things to mention, Chair. This came up at the Joint Assembly as well, but just you'll see on a couple of pages in the reference to utilities works across the city. Specifically around our kind of corridor schemes, Newmarket Road, Hills Road, Madingley Road, the A1134. We expect there to be extensive utilities works across those corridors in the next few years. So to flag that we're working with Streetworks, as you would expect, to try and manage the delivery of those projects. But we are likely to expect delays across those schemes as a result of the utilities work. So raising it here and working with colleagues to kind of work out the exact impact. And just the second thing, normally your report sets out a kind of summary of the work that we commission the Centre for Business Research to do in collaboration with Cambridge Ahead, It's not in this report, but will be in the next one. But some of you hopefully attended the session last week where colleagues from the Centre for Business Research fed back on their most recent report. So we'll feed that work back in your next meeting cycle. Final point, Tom Kelly, Head of Finance, Service Director for Finance at the County Council, is with us virtually. So just so the board's aware of that. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. So let's ask Simon Smith to report to us on the feedback from the Joint Assembly, please. Councillor Smith. Simon.
So, just talking about the progress report, is that what we want to speak to now? Okay, thank you. So we noted that there's going to be considerable trenching work on main artery roads into the city, and the Assembly stressed the importance of continuing liaison with County Streetworks team and the utilities to make sure that these plans were coordinated to minimise disruption to traffic across the city, but also...
Would you just bring your microphone a little bit?
Thank you. But also to prevent, to take extra care about backfilling trenches, because this has resulted in subsidence elsewhere in the city and subsequent maintenance costs, which is very unnecessary if the backfilling had been done to a better standard. So that was an important point that was raised. We'd also requested an update on the Chisholm Trail Phase 2, given the very exciting proposals that have been put forward by East West Rail for a new mobility hub on the other side of the station to the current station entrance, and the Chisholm Trail will create a vital link by foot and cycle to that mobility hub. And we would request the Executive Board to consider inviting Network Rail to take early steps required for the scheme to be progressed. Network Rail are not an organisation that are noted for making rapid progress on such matters. So it would be much appreciated if the Executive Board could lend their weight to encouraging Network Rail to get a move on. So we also referred to the CSET Phase 1 scheme and the importance of addressing the technical planning issues there, and also a comment around the city access scheme and a plea for a strong fence to be put around the budget to prevent it from being reallocated by other sticky fingers, I guess. So, and there was an update on the Hills Road cycling project, and it was confirmed that this scheme would be reinvigorated once the utilities work had been worked through. I'll move on to skills briefly, if that's it. So I think that on that one, it was noted that the Greater Cambridge Development Corporation was requested to know whether the current and planned provision for skilled labour in construction is sufficient to deliver the planned growth. So there's seeing a disconnect between ambition to accelerate development and issues around skills and the capacities to develop those skills in the sub-region. So turning to housing, there was a concern raised that although exceptional progress has been made in the delivery of rural exception sites, they are being lost to a lack of applications, they've been lost to self-build applications, and I think this was a concern that the Assembly wanted the GCP officers to look into. It was noted that, turning to economy and environment, you'll recall that the GCP innovated around progressing electricity grid reinforcement, which was ultimately taken up by UK Power Networks and was actually to credit of the GCP, although this was slightly out with our narrow remit. But there's, again, emphasis was made to need for continuing investment in existing infrastructure. And there's an excellent report by Cambridgeshire Head which looks in depth at the grid and notes not just that we're going to need extra reinforcements, but the existing infrastructure is ageing in its own right and in need of renewal. We revisited the way in which the progress reports and status ratings of schemes is presented, and there was a request for more supportive narrative to explain the changes that had occurred. So it's just continuous improvement of the way in which we look at our continuous improvement, I suppose. So that, I think, is, oh yes, finally, quite important, crucial, was our continuing concern with the GCP's future cash flow deficit and how this might be dealt with. Clearly, we need to look at the way in which the cash resources are being used. So the GCP's capacities and competencies are being fully utilised as we progress towards introducing more capital into the programme. And this is an update on this will be reported to the autumn meeting cycle. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And just may I pass thanks on behalf of the board to the Assembly for the sterling work it does. It's hugely diligent and gives these matters much needed attention and deliberation. So thank you for your report. I think we've got, we can take a note of those recommendations. So, for example, additional narrative on the RAG reporting, for example. It's very useful to have it put into context, and it doesn't necessarily, an amber rating doesn't necessarily give you an accurate assessment of where you're currently at, for example. So, good. Thank you. I will make one observation about the number of utilities works that are going on, and that's right across the whole area of Greater Cambridge. It's very frustrating that days after new surfaces are laid, somebody comes along and puts a trench in there and breaks up the lovely new surface. It's also worth noting that the issuance of TTROs and the adherence of the utility companies to their requirements to let people know they're on their way. I've locally had an issue in the last month where people woke up to find their driveways had been blocked by a utility company with no notification or any indication that they would be let out of their driveway had it needed. They were letting people out, I've got to say, but it was a bit of a shock to people. So we've got a way to go with our utility companies to behave in the manner which they are expected. So, fellow members of the board, have you got any comments on our progress report? Please, Cameron.
Thank you very much. So just a couple of comments. One on city access as raised by the Joint Assembly. So we at the City Council had a motion back in November which was about the city centre and about how we do a bit more placemaking within the city centre. And so we're starting now to bring together various different partners, County Council of course, but other relevant partner organisations in relation to how we manage the city centre. That's not just about transport, that's about all sorts of other aspects, so cleaning and businesses, antisocial behaviour, etc. But that does include potentially transport interventions as well, so we'll be looking in sort of medium term at what kind of interventions might be appropriate, whilst bearing in mind the coming Greater Cambridge transport strategy, of course. But we hope that that can feed into the city access work potentially. On the utilities, I'd just like to ask for further information on that and any mitigations that we can put in place in order to ensure that it doesn't hold up the programme unduly? I mean, inevitably, it will have an impact on the programme, but what can we do to mitigate that as far as possible?
Thank you, Chair. The key thing is that we work with Streetworks and we establish from different utility companies what their programs are, and we communicate what our programme is to try and ensure that we can, as much as possible, stay on track. I think that the biggest issue at the moment is elements like Cadent Gas, where they have a kind of a health and safety executive order to upgrade various gas mains across the city by 2030. So what we're trying to establish is, in effect, how can we make our programme work before that and ensure we get our works done before or after where appropriate. So we will be coming back with a full paper setting out what we think the impact is at the next cycle. Thank you.
So this is particularly in reference to Cadent, isn't it, and the sleeving of their whole network for safety reasons. Yeah, thank you. Cameron, do you have anything more? Okay, thank you. Councillor Dupre, Lorna.
Just to, as we have the Mayor with us today, wondering whether the Mayor might wish to comment on the timescales for the work that is going on with the Greater Cambridge Transport Strategy. There was a report yesterday to the Transport Committee of the Combined Authority, and what his expectation is of city access slotting into that.
Well, let's ask him a question. Councillor, welcome, Councillor Mayor Paul Bristow. Sorry, Mayor Paul Bristow.
The end of Councillor Dupre's question. So, I mean, I heard that you said, well, I want to comment on the timing of the transport plan, but then you said something else. I didn't quite catch it. So
The timing of the transport plan and the expectation about the way in which city access will fit into that in terms of time.
Okay. So, Councillor Dupre is correct that we are moving ahead with producing our transport plan, which underpins the local plan for the Greater Cambridge area, and also what's proposed by the whatever development corporation, should it come out of Cambridge Growth Company. Officers of the Combined Authority and the constituent councils impacted are working together on this, and both Councillor Holloway and Councillor Smith and I are putting in some structure within our board, that we have some political oversight of what is happening and where and how that is progressing. But we should hope to have more progress in the summer.
My understanding is that the report yesterday said that there would be a draft paper ready by November, which is quite late on in the year, and I'm wondering what then happens in terms of the time for fitting the city access work into that.
Yes, so Councillor Dupre rightly raises a question of timing, because of course it's a critical component of the local plan that looks to be complete by December.
And the publication of a draft where both Cambridge, the two constituent councils, Cambridgeshire City Council and South Cambridgeshire District Council, first for the officers to be involved in some of the detail of the plan, and then secondly, both myself, Councillor Holloway and Councillor Smith. So there'll be plenty of opportunities between now and November for all the matters that Councillor Dupre has highlighted to be taken into account.
Let's hope you're accurate in your prediction. Thank you. Anything more? Okay, so we'll move. So coming to the conclusion of the quarterly progress report, we've had the officer representation, feedback from the Assembly, and some debate here. And I'm happy to, we've got to accept the report, and let me just make sure I'm not missing anything out. Yep. That's fine, and we conclude the item and thank Niamh and your team for the report before us. That's noted. The next item is the Barton Greenway, the Balk Path question, and this is going to be introduced by Thomas Fitzpatrick, our officer who's managing this case, and colleagues. Thomas, would you like to introduce the report? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Jumping ahead. Thank you for keeping me right. We've got a couple of questions from the public, and I can introduce them in order. Let me just check here. Item 7, Barton Greenway, Balk Path, and Ian Steen, I believe. Would you like to come forward and ask your question? Thank you.
Right. Diving straight in, the Balk Path in Grantchester is one of the many ancient tracks in Cambridgeshire, and we're privileged in the UK to have many such footpaths and bridleways which don't exist in other countries in the world. The Balk was made to serve the ancient medieval fields of Grantchester, and it has been unchanged in its present form for possibly 1,000 years. And picture it there. When the proposals for the greenways were first brought forward by the council, many cyclists were encouraged by the thought that their daily journey would be improved. So in July and September 2018, on behalf of Grantchester Parish Council, I carried out surveys in the morning between 7:30 and 9:30 to find out what commuting cyclists wanted. These were sent to the GCP without response. The surveys were repeated in November last year. All the surveys find that commuting cyclists use either Grantchester Road, between 13 and 29 cyclists in the morning, or the Meadows footpath, between 25 and 40 cyclists. They say quite clearly that they would not use the Balk. The Meadows path is preferred because it seems less dangerous away from traffic and traffic views. Cyclists say they would like to see both the road and Meadows routes improved. They suggest the Meadows path should be widened a little and the surface improved, but not to be made into a tarmac racetrack. The Balk path is in no one's desire line. Is in no one's desire line. It might get recreational use, but why when the attractive Meadows route is better? Surely we don't need to destroy the character of an ancient path when better alternatives exist. The surveys are key pieces of hard evidence that have been totally ignored by both WSP and their technical note and the Greenway team, and challenge their highly inflated movement data. So why have my surveys been ignored?
Thank you. And if you are happy with this, and I'll make this offer to all our speakers, that we incorporate your question, and rather than answer it individually, we answer it in the debate on this issue, because I think you've brought out critical questions over choices of path, route, and so on today, which will be fundamental to the debate that we are going to engage. Are you happy with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Our second speaker on this is Josh Grantham from CamCycle. Josh.
Thank you, Chair. CamCycle strongly supports progressing the Balk path to delivery without delay. The updated papers show a stronger business case and a clearer explanation of the scheme's benefits. This is not a minor link. It's the first substantial section of Greenway delivered away from a highway, and it sets an important benchmark for the quality and ambition of the network. This is what the Greenways programme is meant to deliver: quiet, high-quality, biodiverse routes that appeal to a wide range of people. The planning work is complete, the design is refined, and the scheme is ready to build. Delaying now risks undermining confidence in the wider programme and creating uncertainty for every future off-road section of the Greenways network. Strategically, the bulk is central to a future network. It is not simply a route for residents of Barton, it's a route for the whole of Cambridge. It creates much needed flexibility for the future of the Haslingfield Greenway and connections towards West Cambridge and Eddington. The question today is not simply how this path functions in 5 years, but how the network grows and connects in the next 20. So let me address some of the concerns that are often raised about this scheme. If the concern is biodiversity, stopping the scheme now would reduce biodiversity rather than protect it. If the concern is about losing a muddy path at the edge of a field, the scheme protects the route for the first time by legally designating it as a bridleway. If the concern is about losing a quiet route, in fact, many more people will gain one. If the concern is value for money, the business case is already 2.2 to 1. That represents strong value and is much better than many of the schemes in the GCP's portfolio. But value for money should not only be judged on the cost of building a path. Delay, uncertainty, and repeated reviews carry significant costs. They consume officer time, create bureaucracy, and erode confidence in delivery, all while taking away from focusing on value. These are the costs that means this path in a field will cost 1.5 million, when our European counterparts could deliver it for less than half. When delivery-ready, active travel schemes start to become the place where we look for savings, whilst far larger spending commitments elsewhere proceed unquestioned, it sends a difficult message about value and about what we consider worth delivering. This is my final time speaking to this board, and for 4 years I've worked closely with the GCP. In that time, sadly, there's not been a single working day where I've not thought about the GCP in some way. Over those years, CamCycle has sometimes supported, but mostly challenged the GCP. But one thing has remained consistent. The GCP holds the most significant opportunity under local control to reshape transport in Greater Cambridge. There's still £400 million in the programme, and the potential remains enormous. Too often, the conversation has shifted to what might replace the GCP or the next thing from government. But the reality is this programme still holds the resources and responsibilities to deliver real change today. Ultimately, this board are the custodians of that opportunity. The responsibility for ensuring the GCP is the organisation it needs to be capable of delivering the change required rests here with you. And the decisions taken in this room and beyond determine whether that potential is realised. Decisions like the one before you today. If the board proceeds, it would send a clear signal that the programme can move forward from planning to delivery and that we can build off-road greenways. The risk of pausing here is not just the bulk, it risks the Haslingfield Greenway, but worse than that, it risks all future off-road sections of the Greenways programme. The decision today is not just about one path, it's about whether the GCP is really dedicated to delivering the long-awaited Greenways network that will benefit people across the region.
Thank you, Josh. And I note that you said this would be your last time before us, which marks obviously a change. So thank you for your time and effort over the years that you've been engaged with the GCP. I hope it's been relatively positive for you, even if the pace of change isn't what you might have preferred. Thank you. So, as I indicated, my intention really is to open the floor to... Oh, sorry, now we've got to do Thomas's... Say again. Oh, I'm sorry. They're not on my list, I don't think. Thank you. excuse me not getting this in order. Have we got Hugh Clough in the chamber? Ah, thank you. City Councillor Hugh Clough wants to make a representation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are some slides that have been put up, which you can view. Slide 1 reminds us of what we're talking about. The Balk Path is a precious, unspoiled, much-loved countryside footpath on the edge of Cambridge, with lovely views to the west and back towards Cambridge from the southern end. Many residents are appalled at the proposal to change it into an engineered, hard-surface greenway. Slide 2. Slide 2 is taken from the report and shows the location and context. The Balk Path runs from the Courton Road in a broad loop north and eastward to the Grantchester Road. It is not on any desire line for commuting cyclists. From Barton, cyclists will and do take the faster, straighter blue route into Cambridge. The green route from point 6 may attract cyclists heading towards Grantchester, towards Trumpington and then Addenbrooks, but not Cambridge-bound cyclists, as that would involve a longer, more complex route compared with either the Grantchester Road or across the meadows. Similarly, cyclists from Grantchester will only choose the Grantchester Road or across the meadows. We have just heard the hard survey evidence from Ian Steen. The Balk is not an option for any of the cyclists from Grantchester. From point 6 to point 1, Barton Road, Grantchester Road junction, is 1.9 meters, 1.9 miles on the straight blue route, and 4 miles via the Bridleway and the Balk green route. The report presented today at 2.8 suggests that some of the users will reroute onto this longer route, and that less confident users will also do that. But there is simply no evidence to that. GCP have not undertaken any surveys to support this assertion. Slide 3, please. After listening to the discussion about this at the GCP exec last July, the Mayor, Paul Bristow, made this simple request: for GCP to go back, consult with the people who answered the original consultation, and then undertake a meaningful review. We came away from that meeting with the clear understanding that this was what the GCP had agreed to. This has simply not happened. We have heard nothing from the GCP until this report emerged just a week ahead of the GCP assembly. The GCP has simply failed to engage as requested and agreed. This project should be halted until that fairly requested and reasonable consultation has occurred. My colleague Peter Rees, who I believe is online, will pick up comments on slide 4 to do with demand data. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clough. Have we got Peter Rees online?
Hello, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, GCP members of the public, it's great to be with you to talk about this really important issue. I'm following up exactly where Councillor Clough has just left off and his remarks about the meaningful review which was requested but does not seem to have been delivered. So what you're looking at here, slide 4 now, table 2, argues that cycling numbers are going to increase 15 times and pedestrian 17 times. We do not think that this is believable for this route. It just doesn't make sense. So at 2.9, the report draws its comparison with the Chisholm Trail in the heart of Cambridge, saying there's likely to be a significant latent demand to be realised through the proposed improvements. For latent demand, these case studies are brought in to try and suggest that. So St Peter's Greenway, connecting the Berryfields, Buckingham Park at the edge of Aylesbury, dense urban structure of Berryfields in Aylesbury. But then we jump to Transpennine Trail, Wallington. So these case studies just don't seem at all relevant in comparison to this very isolated Balk path. So we're just not really convinced by that. The propensity to cycle tool as well, I'd like to pick up on. Looking at this propensity to cycle that's at the base of page 10 in the technical note, it shows that the model initially predicts no trips at all. Then on page 11, it's been necessary to revert to, quote, diversion demand analysis, which means basically 30% of the leisure trips from Barton. It's assumed that 30% of the trips from Barton will divert down the bulk path, and that's how the figure of 37 cycle trips has been arrived on. But what is the basis for this estimate? Are we now moving from providing a commuter track to, is this simply a leisure track? What's going on there? Is this been demonstrated for a leisure track? What about the cost of that, removing a much loved ancient footpath at the edge of Cambridge? So I think, we have to think again. We have to do the necessary surveys, and we can't just spend millions of pounds based on the suggestion that there may well be leisure travel that we don't know about. So we just don't have the evidence for it. So please do conduct the meaningful review. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Rees. I've suggested we want to have a debate on this, but before we do that, I think if we hand over to Thomas to present the case as before us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll keep this relatively short as a lot of it's been covered already. Firstly, I just want to introduce Jonathan Camp next to me, who is the Senior Project Manager for the scheme, and Stephen Henderson from WSP, who is the business case lead for some of the greenways. In July, the board asked officers to take away the bulk path element of the Barton Greenway and to come back to the board having reviewed the project. This paper summarises that work, and in section 4.19, we put forward the technical reasons that officers are recommending it is approved. In section 6, we then put forward the kind of two options for next steps. Option A, which would be to proceed and move to delivery, and option B, which would be to remove this section, resubmit the planning application that's in the system now, proceed with potential off-site mitigation for biodiversity, and to accept delays to the delivery of the remaining off-road section of the Greenway. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that summary. So what I'll do, I'll invite Simon Smith to report on the Joint Assembly's consideration of this matter, if you would, Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Executive Board, the Executive Board is recommended to adopt option A by the Assembly. There was a 6-3 majority, although I recall it being 6-2 because there were only 8 members, voting members present. So that is an error in the report. It was 6-2. So I put that as an overwhelming majority in support for the scheme. There is a strong case for the bulk path. You've seen in the revised forecast, higher than previously reported, and there is, of course, the concept of induced demand. Once it's there, it will be used, just as this 1,000-year pathway has been used for 1,000 years. This will be used for a very long period of time, and we have to have that kind of perspective when we're making these kinds of decisions, as our predecessors have and generations before us. So it's an off-road opportunity to connect Barton and Cambridge, and it's going to be very helpful for people who are less confident cyclists. And what we're trying to do is to increase cycling and walking, not just for travel to work, but also for our health and our mental well-being. And it therefore provides equal opportunities for all user groups to access the area of Cambridge. And the other route, which has been improved along the A603, will not be so attractive to such users. Now, this is a very important point. The current path is a permitted route, meaning access could be removed by the landowner. But this proposal would make it part of a rights-of-way network and seal its presence in perpetuity. The scheme has additional benefits, and these relate to delivering BNG through, for people who don't understand, basically biodiversity net gain, through improvements to watercourses. So the enhancement is to an offshoot of the Bin Brook, which offers a unique opportunity to better protect this tributary from runoff and pollution before it enters the River Cam. And as well as enhancing the biodiversity along it. And without this element in the scheme, there would be a £750,000 impairment on the other parts of the Barton Greenway. So the bulk path was included in the overall planning application for the route, and removal from this part of the programme would mean that the whole scheme would need to be the subject of assessments before resubmission and cause further delay. But the main point was this was overwhelmingly supported by the Assembly, and there was also representations made by members of the public in support as well, and including the British Horse Society, which is very unusual. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to a debate on the Executive Board. So I'll go around the members for their contribution, starting with Cameron, as you are nearest to.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so I think the question of whether to defer this or whether to actually throw out this scheme that has had a lot of work gone into it gets to the heart of what we're trying to do through the Greater Cambridge Partnership, because one of the key things we're here to do is to deliver really high quality walking and cycling infrastructure. And why are we doing that? We're doing that for the health and well-being benefits that it has for people. We're doing it urgently to tackle the climate crisis, and urgently from a very practical point of view, because we need fewer people as a percentage in cars on the roads, because we're at the point of gridlock at certain times on certain roads, and we need more people out of cars doing other things like walking, cycling, and getting the bus. So in order to do that, we need to be able to actually put in place that infrastructure, and that will at times mean difficult decisions on certain routes. This is one of those difficult decisions, I would argue. It may not be the biggest one, it may not be the one that is going to have the most people using it by any means at all, but actually it is part of that whole process of putting in place the infrastructure we're going to need for decades to come if we are to be a place where people can safely, happily walk, cycle, enjoy their time going in and out of Cambridge, and we can have a functioning city for the long term. So this does have a cost-benefit ratio of 2.2 to 1. It's not, yes, it's not the sort of the scheme that's going to have the most users out of all the schemes we've looked at, but actually that is a good cost-benefit ratio. And it's one where actually I would be very happy in putting in this money to provide a good path. Just to address some of the comments that have been made, so Mr. Steen, you made some good points. And thank you for the survey work that you did. You did say that the Meadows path is preferred by quite a lot of people, and it is. I know that is very heavily used and is really showing its age at the moment. And you said it's preferred because it's away from traffic. So I think that's part of the argument for this scheme as well, really. Because for me, Grantchester Road, yes, some people use it, but that can be a fast road. You get quite a lot of speeding on Grantchester Road. It's a narrow road. And actually, if we can move people away from that, give them an alternative, I see that as a positive. The biodiversity improvements that come with this, absolutely a bonus and a really positive thing as well. But just going to the points about the current path and what its future nature might be, I mean, I really like that path. I use it quite a lot for walking and running myself. I love it, and I do love the fact that it's quite quiet. But I also want other people to be able to enjoy that path. So we've got what for about half of the year is a pretty muddy path. You've seen the pictures of it there. It's a nice path if you like that kind of thing and you like walking your dog there, or you like going for a run there or whatever. But actually for most people that makes it relatively unusable for most of the year. The benefit of this scheme is that you get to keep that path. If you like that path, that's still going to be there. And actually, as has been mentioned, it would be protected for the long term. There's also going to be a new path. So if you want to use the new path for cycling, or indeed for walking, wheeling, whatever you want to do on it, that's going to be there and a much more solid surface to be used year round. So I think this is an excellent scheme. It's not the one that is going to have the very highest number of users out of all the schemes we do, but it's one that represents a really important step and a really important principle in terms of our ability to drive forward cycling and walking infrastructure.
Thank you. Councillor Dupre, I'll come to you.
Thank you. Before I speak, I've got two questions I would like to ask, if that's possible.
Please, go ahead.
My first question is that we have two options in front of us, option A, to proceed, option B, not to proceed. The third option that has been thrown up during the public contribution to this is of deferral for future review. That is not an option that has been put to us, and I wondered what the implications in terms of time, cost, or anything else would be, whether the officers have any thoughts or comments about that as a viable third option. My second question is that I am interested in the conversation about that's been raised by the public and also referenced by Councillor Holloway about preserving the route for the future, bearing in mind it could be removed by the right to use could be removed by the landowner. £750,000 seems an awful lot of money to secure a route into the future. Are there alternative legal means by which anybody, not necessarily this body, could secure that route for public access by the future without needing to invest £750,000 in it? Those are my two questions before I say what I would like to say.
Yeah, thank you.
On that.
Just give me a second. Which one of our officers would like to take this? Thomas?
I'll try, and Peter will add to it if I don't quite answer fully the questions. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the delays, I mean, in effect, any delay costs money in terms of construction inflation, which is something that we're always conscious about with delivery of these projects. But we would have to go away and look at kind of the specific implications to the project of a delay of I think the next board cycle would be to July, so 3 or 4 months, and what that would look to. But there would certainly be a kind of construction inflation cost. In terms of the legal means around public rights of way, yes, there are other legal means to create public rights of way. I'm not an expert in it, but clearly they do exist. They do cost money and obviously involve their own kind of public consultation processes and such like. But yes, there are other ways. Our cost that we are talking about here, the 1.48 is the construction as well as everything else that goes with that cost. It's the all-in cost. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got an answer on those 2 points, and you've now got some other contribution to make, I believe.
Yep, thank you. I have read carefully the representations that have been made to me. I've listened to online after the event, the deliberations of the Assembly. I've read the papers carefully. I remain unpersuaded about the estimated future level of use that has come back to us today. I also remain unpersuaded that this is the desire line that most people will want to take when there are other ways to reach destinations. I'm also unpersuaded that this is the best use of that sum of money to achieve the GCP's objectives, given the number of other things that we could do that would probably create greater benefit for more people and achieve our objectives in other ways. I'm also unpersuaded by the argument that a refusal of a decision not to proceed with this particular part of this greenway risks the entire future of all off-road greenways. I simply don't believe that that this is, were this body to agree not to proceed today, I simply do not believe that would represent such a decision as to what? Sorry. No. But it wouldn't be such a precedent, is what I'm trying to say. It wouldn't set such a precedent that other off-road greenways or parts of greenways in the future would be affected. I simply do not accept that. And I'm uninclined to go back and do yet more studies and spend more money, more time, risk more contract inflation. I think we've reached a point where we do need to make a decision, and if that decision is between option A to proceed and option B not, I have to say I am more persuaded by option B.
Thank you. So, John, I don't know whether you've got anything to contribute to the debate, but you're welcome to speak if you have.
Thank you. I mean, to be fair, not a lot. I think there's been a good range of arguments here, I think, which are broadly supported on both ways from the university. There's quite a lot to consider here, and I think it's that balance between the sort of biodiversity net gain, but making sure that this is something that is actually used.
Yes, so if I can sum up some of the arguments, sorry. Mayor Paul Bristow would like to make a contribution.
I would, Councillor Mill, if that is okay. Just a couple of things I want to say. I mean, I listened very carefully to some of the things that people had to say about the scheme. And one of the arguments that came up was, you know, this is something and we need to do something. But just because this is something doesn't necessarily always mean it's the right thing to do. And I think that's also what Councillor Dupre was saying. And as I said last time, there's a bit of an irony, isn't there, that the councillors who are campaigning against this are from the Green Party, who you would assume would be pro a scheme like this. I mean, I don't share the Green Party's politics anyway, but one would assume that they would be very supportive of people cycling and not using their cars. And the fact that they're against it for all the reasons they set out probably suggests to me that this is something that is not a good idea. But what I really wanted to say, just a couple of things. First, at the last meeting we did have a decision that we would go back and consult with people who answered the original consultation and then undertake a meaningful review. I'm not convinced that this is what we have in front of us now. This is not a meaningful review. The other thing I just wanted to say as well, I've looked at the report from WSP, and it says here, you know, is the comparison to the Chisholm Trail. And they say, actually, in their report, it is acknowledged that the data from the Chisholm Trail cannot be directly extrapolated to the current and future greenway projects across Cambridgeshire due to the differences in geographic content and the demographic characteristics. So they're accepting in this report that you can't directly compare them both, but they have done anyway. And I suspect that this is trying to make the facts fit what is already a presumed agenda, that this is the right thing to go ahead and do, and that does concern me. And just a last thing I wanted to say as well, and I heard Councillor Smith's point earlier from the Assembly, where he turned around and he made the point that less confident cyclists, this would produce a route for less confident cyclists. I'm not sure it's entirely the GCP's job or a good use of taxpayers' money to create paths for nervous cyclists when alternatives exist. So, like Councillor Dupre, I'm not convinced that this is the right scheme or the best use of public money. And I just wanted to put that on the record. If there was a third option, I mean, there were only two in the report, but if there was a third option, I would suggest that we go away and do what we said we were going to do last time.
Okay, thank you for that. So if I can try and summarise and respond to some of these issues. One, Josh made a very strong case for making active travel an attractive option, and that off-road is very much part of that. So clearly, and particularly for non-confident riders, or for example, parents and their children using these routes, is a very important part of getting people to take more active travel routes to work and for leisure. So that is a principle that we're working to, and we haven't abandoned that by considering not going ahead with this option. Attractive infrastructure is clearly a really important driver, and we have got to get our car, private motoring down. I think we've got a target of 15% reduction in car usage, and those parameters still, I'll give you sight for that. So the critical issue for me is substitution. And we are talking about putting a route in the Balk Path that is already covered by the Haslingfield proposal for their Greenway, which goes up Grantchester Road, as that you've referred to, which is, I would suggest, far from ideal. But if we haven't got an option to improve the condition of Meadows Path, and we're clearly limited by the landowner in that respect, which is a much more obvious way to get through to the destination point in Newnham. So it's clear that the amount of people from the demographics, so in the report that was before us from WSP, we see the demographics very clearly. There's very few people, and I'm not convinced that the estimates of usage will come to fruition. I don't think we're creating a precedent, as you've said, by dismissing this part of a wider scheme that will offer us a greenway to do what the programme seeks to do. And despite the sunk costs, a considerable amount of saving, and there's plenty of places. I was going to draw your attention to some of them. The bridge that goes over the M11 on the 603. So we've got that section of work being rolled out right now. Lovely, nice way path. It's not separate from the carriageway into Cambridge from there. But the bridge over the M11 has no passing capacity for cyclists. It's barely wide enough for one cyclist. If you were going to spend some of this money released by not doing this, that's one place that would be very obvious to put a scheme in place. So, as you gathered, I'm happy to recommend that we go for option B and drop the Balk Path. Now, we have got a procedural issue here because Councillor Holloway has clearly spoken in an opposite direction to that I've just expressed, and Councillor Dupre, but we have to take decisions by consensus. So we've got two options there. We've either got to ask the person that has a different opinion if they are prepared to abstain from this consideration, or whether we defer the decision, take it away, and speak to each other to try and resolve the difference of opinion. So I shall ask Cameron Holloway what his preference is. Thank you.
I still support the recommendations. So there are two recommendations there. One is to note the methodology, and the other is to agree to proceed with the delivery of the Balk Path element, and I support both of those. So I'd like to continue to support both of those. I want to proceed with the Balk Path.
Yes.
So I'd say that's my position remains the same, and then your position, I guess, remains the same as well.
that's fine, thank you. Yeah, I was just checking that I've understood your point. Yes, it's either, we go with either A or B. So, no, oh, I'm sorry, yes, excuse the confusion to everybody. So, if you wish to continue with your support for the bike path, and don't wish to abstain from voting that way, then we will have to take it away and come to some sort of decision between us, in between now and the next board meeting. So we'll come back to the next board meeting. So rather disappointingly that we haven't moved forward, but nonetheless we've had a clear debate about this, and we'll discuss it and come back to the next board meeting. Thank you. So the next item is to discuss the Comberton Greenway and the Sidgwick Avenue project. This is, again, a report being introduced by Thomas Fitzpatrick. But before we move on to his report, we'll do public questions. And Josh, I think you're up again. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Yes, I did get warned that... There it is.
Hello. Yeah, I'm going to take this one on behalf of Campcycle.
Anna Williams.
Thank you.
Welcome. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Chair. Campcycle strongly supports option A for Sidgwick Avenue. The proposals are robust, evidence-based, and address a clear and urgent accessibility failure on this street. For many people today, including disabled people and less confident cyclists, Sidgwick Avenue is effectively unusable. This scheme will transform daily journeys for thousands of people and represents one of the best value for money proposals in the programme. We welcome the intention to use an experimental traffic regulation order. This creates a genuine opportunity to think differently about how schemes are brought forward and engagement undertaken. Traditional consultation processes tend to overrepresent those who object, rather than reflecting the lived experience of people who use a street every day or those who are currently excluded from it. We would like to see a robust and structured approach to engagement that actively seeks a representative picture of all street users, including those currently excluded. This will allow members to understand how the scheme is performing in practice and to make a properly informed decision on whether it should continue beyond the ETRO period. So our question today is, if this scheme is progressed, will the GCP consider how improved connectivity between the West Cambridge site and Sidgwick Avenue could be brought forward, helping to ease pressures on routes such as Grange Road and Borrells Walk and enabling more people to access Sidgwick Avenue in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that's the only public question we have on that. So, oh, I'm sorry.
Martin, sorry.
Oh, Martin Lucas Smith. Thank you. Yes, thank you. If you just use the microphone, the device in front of you.
How are the committee members sitting? I can't. Oh, cool. Hello, committee. I support this proposal. It fixes two problems at once with very little cost to the taxpayer, which is very welcome at the moment. The first is that pavements are barely passable due to the growth of the wonderful trees along that avenue. The small space that is left is totally inaccessible to many users of wheelchairs, mobility scooters and buggies. And it feels to me that there's no other solution to this clear discrimination problem. And that solution is to extend the pavement around the trees. As someone who every day is using buses and walking as my main form of transport, I can tell you I believe this is probably the worst pavement in the city. I go along to up that end fairly regularly, and it's for this kind of reason that I joined the Pedestrians Association many years ago. It's a really terrible setup at the moment, and you can see from this picture, this is typical. There is no other solution here, and if you continue this, you're essentially sort of maintaining a sort of discrimination. The second reason I think for supporting this is of course West Cambridge expanding very heavily. And Burrells Walk, as we know, is very heavily congested in terms of numbers of people using it. So an alternative route that way is needed. Having lived nearby, I know that car use is actually very low in the area. In fact, the Mayor recently published a half-minute video asking for feedback taken during the daytime, and there was not a single car passing. You can even hear the birds in your video, which is rather nice. But when vehicles do pass in that 30-second video, cycling is squeezed unsafely. And with the wider pavements that are needed, this is important to fix. So I've looked at the traffic data. Sidgwick Avenue has more people walking than using cars. Cycling is exactly the same, there's more people doing that. And drivers, of course, will still be able to access all locations as now. Grange Road has got more walking and cycling than driving, and West Road, which I'm very familiar with, has got very little traffic, even on a Saturday afternoon. Again, you can hear the birds there. It seems to me this is a very cost-efficient way to expand the West Cambridge capacity at a very low cost to the taxpayer compared to things like busways at a time when our taxes are high. And with the Mayor's policy to triple growth in the area, it seems to me there's no alternative to schemes like this because road space in congested urban areas is finite. It seems to me this scheme increases capacity to access this important high-tech area, meaning that drivers then don't suffer increased congestion on Madingley Road as that site expands very considerably. Lastly, I just wanted to quote something that a disability user posted on a recent blog post. He said, wheelchairs don't have suspension, so going back to this, the first issue. So all those bumps would jolt the person's body. For some disabilities, that would cause massive pain. It could cause damage to the wheelchair, which the NHS would then have to fund, and potentially could tip the wheelchair, resulting in people falling out and gaining minor or major injuries. Disabled people with poor mobility and older people who use walking sticks, rollators and so on will find bumps a challenge and not easily able to step into the road to go round. Parents pushing prams and buggies will find the bumps a challenge. Toddlers learning to walk will find this difficult also. And so that's
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, that's answering it. Thank you. So please support, will you support the proposal?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we'll invite Thomas to respond to the questions if there was one, and to introduce the report, please. And then we'll go to Simon Smith once we've done that. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Chair. To introduce the report, the Sidgwick Avenue is located at the end of the Comberton Greenway and links the route to multiple university and college buildings. As set out in sections 4.7 to 4.10 of the report, we previously had a proposal for a one-way system that raised significant objections. In response to this, the board asked officers to go away and look at different options. And we've worked with affected colleges, the university, local members and residents groups to bring forward the proposal today. This scheme consists of build-outs to address the accessibility issues which we've just heard about, and you can see in figure 3 of your report, where pedestrians are being forced onto the carriageway, whilst also reducing traffic via a drop-down pollard to stop through traffic. This scheme is put forward as an experimental traffic regulation order so that we can monitor its performance and impact, and then a follow-up report would be brought to this board next year on the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Simon Smith, if you'd like to report from the Joint Assembly. Thank you.
Well, I can be very brief, and simply because this is proposals had an unprecedented volume of correspondence in support. On matters of particular detail, the Assembly, like the drop-down pollards, those are cyclists. I've had an incident with one of those, so I'm not so keen on that myself. And the bollard won, by the way. Of course, the retention of the trees, which are one of the great features, not just of Sidgwick Avenue, but of the city itself. There was a request for monitoring of the traffic displacement. So that had unanimous support. So if you can bring yourselves to follow the Assembly's views this time round, that would be very welcome. Thank you.
I think it's looking much more promising, Councillor Smith. So, I don't know whether it's timely to introduce this, but both Newnham and Selwyn colleges have written to us to offer their support for this scheme. And in fact, I'm not sure there's any objecting voices. So with that in mind, let's just check with board members if they've got anything else to contribute.
Well, just, thank you. So, yeah, I absolutely support this scheme. Just to say that there's been quite a history to this. Obviously, there was a previous proposal put forward where concerns were raised by local residents and by the GP surgery, among others. And it's great that the scheme's now been revised. It's a very simple scheme now. It's a very easy thing to do, very easy to implement, but actually would have a very significant positive impact. Hopefully, if it doesn't, then in a year's time we can undo it, but we can monitor and see what happens. I think it would be very positive opening Sidgwick Avenue up to more people and more of the types of people who are already using it, which is people on foot, people cycling, and people potentially in wheelchairs as well. So I see that as all very positive. Residents generally, who I've spoken to in my role as a Newnham councillor, have been largely supportive. There are some who are not, but I would say the majority are glad at the revision that's happened. They like the idea of the new scheme and think it would help. They're really, really keen to obviously keep the trees in place and to protect them, but they do also recognise that in order for people to get past them, we need to have some way of people going past them on the pavement.
Thank you. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. The trees of Sidgwick Avenue have been my friends since 1977 when I first came up to Selwyn, and I have been very aware over many years of the issues with the tree roots, the heave to the pavements, the constriction of the ability for pedestrians to get along there, cyclists to get along the road safely. So I fully support this. I think it is a good proposal, and I'm particularly pleased that in principle, with the idea of using an experimental traffic regulation order, I think we do not use those enough. I don't just mean this body, I mean every body. We simply do not in Cambridgeshire use experimental traffic regulation orders enough to test out ideas and see where things are going. I think that it is good to do that, and I think that it is good to do that in this particular circumstance, and I fully support the proposals.
Good. It's looking good, Sam. So, John, have you got any further comments?
Yeah, just to say that again, we would really welcome that. We have welcomed the fact that the GCP and its engagement with the university and the colleges has been so good over the last couple of years, particularly to work out how to make sure that, as everybody said, that the amazingly impressive trees are, protected at the same time of actually working out how to deal with the mobility issues of the pavements. I think again, as a good sort of evidence person, I really do like the fact we're going to actually do an experiment to find out what the evidence is and do that the right way. I think that's really helpful, and of course the university would be very happy to provide any support that it needs to that evidence gathering and connect you with people that use the Sidgwick site. That would be helpful in order to be able to really capture that evidence properly.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I find it extraordinary that this proposal, the original proposal, did go to public consultation, in which 90% of respondents objected. That's on paragraph 4.8. That was the one-way scheme in 2023. But you thought that was worthy of consultation, but this proposal is not worthy of consultation. There's been no element of public consultation on this scheme, and the impact of this scheme can easily be argued to be more considerable of the scheme back in 2023. And I don't think it's right that you've not properly consulted with the public. The selected interested parties, yes, but you are avoiding public consultation by progressing straight to an ERTRO. But it's not too late. But this is too late for objectors, as the scheme will already be in place. And if it's already in place, I think it's very unlikely that it will ever move, it would never ever be removed. So I would just implore you to actually go to public consultation. That's the reason, I mean, Mr. Martin talked about my consultation that I did on my social media. Now, I'm perfectly aware that my social media is not a representative example of the public, and I fully accept that. But it is a snapshot. And I can tell you overwhelmingly the number of people who are against it. You know, I've got all sorts of people here, including Mr. Lucas Smith, who engaged with many people here, who said, and he would, I'm sure he would reflect that many people on my social media were saying, keep it open. And there's some person here saying that they're disabled, but I don't presume to think for a second that, that this road should close. And I would have to agree with everybody else. Somebody else has said that all roads, all closing roads does is add congestion elsewhere. I've got lots of people saying keep it open. I'm not going to waste your time by going through my entire consultation. But I'm just telling you, overwhelmingly, Chair, people wanted either a say or to keep it open. Do not do this without having a consultation. It would be quite wrong, and I suspect you know it would be wrong.
So we've noted that, thank you. And the whole point, Cameron.
The road would still be open, and in fact it would, if anything, be more open to people who use it in the ways that most people use it at the moment. It would also actually still be open to cars. They can still drive into the road and still access anything that's on that road. They would just can't go all the way along it. So it would very much be open, and I would argue in many ways more open than it was. I mean, I also, as a local councillor for Newnham Ward, have spoken to quite a few of the affected residents. Whilst there's a range of views, most living in that area are positive about this proposal.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Paul, you weren't invited to respond, but we've noted your comments and the response here. And I think generally it's time to come to a move to recommend that we accept this report and go ahead with the scheme. So I'll take a vote. If we're all in agreement, if you indicate so, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. I'll not go through the recommendations that we've just approved, but they are listed in the papers through A, B, C and D. Thank you. So moving on to item 9, Great Cambridge Greenways competent full business case, which I believe is going to be introduced by Thomas Fitzpatrick again. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the final decision for this project and looks for agreement to the full business case. We have already delivered improvements as part of the scheme in Comberton Village and Coton Village, and we're in construction right now on Adams Road, which will be England's first cycle street when it's completed in a few months' time. This decision will allow us to complete the remaining sections, especially the off-road links from Comberton through to Coton. The benefit cost ratio of this scheme is 3.9 to 1, representing high value for money, and section 4.8 sets out the significant benefits of this scheme. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Go in order and Simon Smith to report back on the Joint Assembly's view. Thank you.
Again, Chair, I can be very brief on this one. The Assembly thought the golden gravel was golden. I love that. And they highlighted a problem with where solar studs are used. That has to be accompanied by long-term maintenance because vegetation grows over them, they get covered in mud, and you can't see them. And that was a point that was made on this. Otherwise, there was full support for this.
I think self-cleaning studs are much better these days. So let's hope that's not an issue. So I'll open it up to the executive board for discussion. Cameron.
I support this proposal. I think we should go ahead.
Councillor Dupre.
Yeah, I'm supportive of this as well. To descend to one of the very small elements of this and respond on the solar studs. We had some solar studs installed along a road in my county division, which is not in Greater Cambridge, but are still solar studs, and the upkeep of them has been lamentable. I believe that would this be in an area where there is generally no weed spraying? Because in that case, that would mean, they may be self-cleaning, but they do get obscured by weeds, and if you don't have a weed spraying programme around those, then you need to resort to manual weed removal. And I think solar studs are a useful addition to schemes, provided they are actually recognised as an installation that needs regular and effective maintenance.
Yes, I think this is a regular topic for us to consider. I think perhaps, Peter, you might comment on those conversations about long-term maintenance for our projects.
Yep, so we have got agreement with the County Council as to the greenways being maintained. I don't know the details of weed spraying or not in this particular location, but if weed spraying is allowed, it will be provided. If it's not, then it will be done by alternative means, but that's certainly covered by the agreement with the county.
Thank you. Did I glean a general acceptance and recommendations to proceed with this?
That was the first thing I said, Chair.
Thank you, just checking. John?
Now, just to say that supportive as well. I think it gives good opportunities for linking into Cambridge Way.
Well, I mean, I wrote to Mr. Blake relatively recently about a key aspect of the Commodore Greenway. I think you replied today or yesterday, and I very much look forward to welcoming you to meet with those people that I met recently and with the police about the impact of the Comberton Greenway and the impact that might have on how we might design out crime as a result of it, because there were great concerns in Comberton about the risk to farmland and being access to hare coursing and other issues. That comes not just from the residents, it comes from the police and comes from rural crime.
Rather off the topic, really, for today's discussion,
I know it's off the topic, but I'm just giving the opportunity
We'd need to
make
keep
this
the
point,
meeting
Councillor
to
Mills.
its topic.
I'm making that point, but I'm looking forward to discussing it with you in due course.
Thank you. Yes, we've noted and seen the correspondence on that. And it's not that we don't have any care for the illegal activities that can happen in our rural countryside. It's clearly a big problem. And I was pleased to see, for example, last October, the police were making strenuous efforts to constrain hare coursing with a large number of arrests and activities in that regard. Yeah, Cambridge. Thank you. So, I think we've got our ducks in a row here that we can agree to proceed with this, and I can just confirm that that's the case by voting for that. Thank you. And so the recommendations again are listed on page 5 of my notes, A, B, C, D, and we'll take that as passed. Thank you. Item 11 is our smart programme item. And I think Dan, our officer, is in the building ready to present. So, sorry, 10. Have I missed? I'm sorry. Sorry, Dan, a bit premature. I've tried to skip item 10, which was really rather important. So let's go through the Waterbeach Railway Station facilities proposal. And again, this is being introduced by Thomas Fitzpatrick. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you very much, Chair. So following feedback from the Board, Assembly and local members, we're asking for permission to develop proposals for facilities at Waterbeach Railway Station. As a minimum, this would include a waiting room, toilets and a space for a mobile cafe. We're asking the Board to let us work on development of a proposal, including investigating potential income streams to offset the capital and revenue costs that will be associated with it. And then we will come back with a formal proposal for the board, hopefully late this year. Thank you very much, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Well, let's invite Simon Smith to report from the Joint Assembly. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair. This has been a scheme that's been promoted by one of the Assembly members who represents the area. And his main substantive point is that Waterbeach is going to be the equivalent of a small, actually quite a large market town. And its railway station would have no facilities. So no waiting room, no toilets, no food or drink vendor. So the Assembly has requested proposals which have now been brought forward to introduce those facilities which are welcomed and unanimously by the Assembly. I think the only point of detail that was picked up was this point about future pressure on the county council, soon to be unitary authority, and in my role, I don't like unexpected revenue pressures, and therefore the request was that when the officers are looking at the business case, to identify ways in which revenues are generated from the facilities to cover the long-term estate management costs. And that was it, Chair. Thank you.
And I think you just said that that's part of the ongoing process for this, looking at revenue costs and see how much we could recover.
Yeah, exactly. There's a number of different potential revenue streams, such as use of the facilities by rail operators and creating space for that and things like that. So that'll be part of this work that we'll then come back and explain to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we seem to all have an agreement that the provision of such utilities is absolutely vital to have this facility that is costing us a lot of money to upfront fund, and that it will get used. I was on the original planning committee at the district council who looked at this with a view to establishing early as possible use of the railway station as the principal method of getting in and out of Waterbeach Newtown. And for me, this is really very important part of making sure that works. Cameron, I don't know if you've got any comments?
No, just to say that I welcome the fact that officers have gone away and done this work at the request of members. So thank you very much for doing that work and look forward to seeing it coming forward.
Thank you. Councillor Dupre?
Yeah, agree with the recommendations, but I do share the comment made by the member at the Joint Assembly about the concern that the public rather than the developers would be funding this. And I think that's just worth noting.
Indeed. It was very disappointing to find a very enthusiastic developer presenting to the planning committee that they were going to build this station. And how's that turned out? John?
Just to say that we're supportive of this.
Thank you. Then I think that that brings us to a consistent view, so I can assume that we're happy to carry that agenda item forward. Thank you. And that was on the items A, B, C and D on that item 10. And that now brings us to item 11, the Smart Programme update, and Dunn has taken the seat. And Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the programme and what we've been delivering over the last year. So I think the first thing to say is that we've been really successful in bringing funding into the GCP programme. Next slide, please. So we brought in 16.6 million. That's £1 for every £6.30 that you've allocated to the programme. We have been successful in getting some EU funding in. So that's the latest funding grant that we've brought into the programme. So that was £325,000. And we also have an application in for a further £4 million in grant for the autonomous vehicle work that we've been doing. And we should hear on the 1st of April about that. So next slide, please. So a big part of our work has been looking at automated vehicles. This is a really important part of the work to validate the technology as we'll be using it on the proposed busways, but also looking at how they could help and support the wider public transport system. So we've been running on 2 trial sites. We've been running from Madingley Park and Ride into Eddington and then on to West Cambridge. And we are now also running from Bayburn Park and Ride into the biomedical campus and then on to Trumpington Park and Ride. And we've got 2 vehicles serving those routes. Next slide, please. So the next step in this project is, if we're successful in the funding bid, we'll have another 2 years to run the trials, which will give us much more data than we've got at the moment. But I think one of the key things for us is actually how people access and use the vehicles. So we'll be doing a lot of work looking at the kind of human factors, and the customer experience, looking at things like ticketing. So how will people buy a ticket? How will we do revenue protection? How will we get people with protected characteristics onto and on off the vehicles? And then developing business cases so that we can move to commercial deployments at the end of that 2-year period. Next slide, please. Thanks. One of the other pieces of work that we've been doing is building a sensor network across the city. This is really important as the city deal requires, in the assurance framework, it requires that we monitor and evaluate our schemes. So we're collecting data from around the city so that we can understand the impact that the GCP investments are having. We're also doing quite a lot of work looking at how we can make that data as usable as possible and draw intelligence and insight from it. We now have a network of 133 sensors, and the biomedical campus have just recently purchased 30 sensors that are similar to ours. So we're looking at a data sharing agreement so that we can have more data and we can expand the network. And then we have a data platform that we're aggregating all our transport data into so that we can share it with colleagues. Next slide, please. You've already seen an example of this in the papers that Thomas has presented. On Sedgwick Avenue, they've been using the Vivacity data to have a look at how people use the road, where people are actually moving out into the carriageway to avoid the trees, and also it gives us movement counts on that road. And that will be really important as we put the TRO in place, the trial TRO, so that we can see the impact that that will have on movements in that street. Next slide, please. We built a dashboard so that members of the public or anybody can actually go into Cambridgeshire Insights and interrogate the data, and we're building tools that officers can use as well. Next slide, please. And we're also doing a lot of work with real-time data, real-time bus data, so we feed it into Google Maps, Apple Transit, and Citymapper. We've got a totem outside the station, and we've also built these travel screens that you can see on the slide that sit in a number of the university buildings. I think we've got about 40 across the city now. Next slide, please. And we're doing some work looking at bus priority. So this is really early stage work. So traditionally, bus priority uses GPS, which can be out by about 200, 300 meters. What this does is it makes it much more accurate. So we're using QR codes on the front of buses and a visual sensor that can read the QR code. It knows which bus it is, and then it can look it up in the real-time data to see whether it's running on time, whether it's running late, or whether it's running early, and then we can make a decision as to whether we give it priority based on that. And we're running at 2 sites on Newmarket Road at the moment. Next slide, please. And then we're also looking at how we can better manage pedestrian crossings, particularly where there is heavy cycle usage. So we've got 3 locations, Maid Causeway and Fair Street, Milton Road and Asham Road, and East Road and Norfolk Road. Again, using visual sensors so we can understand the weight of pedestrian traffic and the weight of cycle traffic, and then give priority based on that. We did a similar trial earlier in about a year and a half ago on East Road, and we found that we could reduce pedestrian dwell times by about 36%. Next slide. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that's a brief overview of the programme and the kind of activities that we've been undertaking. Any questions?
Yeah, let's open the floor to questions. Cameron, Lorna?
Not really a question, but really, really interesting to hear that, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Glad to see it, and I look forward to seeing more of it, but I don't have a particular question at this time, but thanks for that presentation.
Lorna?
No, I don't have any questions or comments other than that I have done my trip on the automated the bus, and I have been incredibly impressed by it. I think it really is extraordinary. Yeah, keep going on.
Okay, thank you.
No, nothing other than to say also it's really great to see such good use of alternative systems and the trialling of things. It's really good to see the data being collected.
So I hesitate to say when I first came to Cambridge 20 years ago, it seemed as though for the most intelligent city certainly in the country and possibly around the globe, that we had such an antiquated and poor transport system. We couldn't even share data from the sensors that we did have because it was possibly privileged information. It would have been really quite useful to do prioritisation that we're now doing active work on. So other than I would wish it had happened a lot earlier, I'm delighted to see that, for example, your reference to raising money externally into the scheme has been excellent. So I hope and keep our fingers crossed that the latest application also works so that we can extend our programme. And I know that you and your team are at the forefront of this work. And I look forward to discussions going forward about how and what technology we use to deploy on C2C, the Cambridge-Camborne route, and CSET, should that come forward. Because in the time that we've been developing the programme, the advances that have been seen in autonomous transit systems has been significant. And I would like us to continue being at the forefront of adoption of that technology. So best of luck going forward on that. That brings us to the end of that. I think we can note the report. Thank you. And I believe, we can keep you right, that brings us to the last item, which is the date of the next meeting, which is in July, 9th of July, coming up, and I look forward to seeing everybody then. And bring the meeting to a close. Thank you.